a soft spot for it because I mean I made my living off this game for like 5 years, so it's
Right.
a little. I always look fondly back on it, but
Yeah,
kind
I
of like
mean, it's a great game and it's got a lot going for it, but it's just one of those things that, I mean, maybe if I was really truly making a living off the game, it'd be different. But for
yeah,
me, it was always kind of a like, oh yeah, I play and I make videos, and then I never really did any narrated content or anything for a really long time because it was really just posting clips was all it was for me for a
yeah,
while. And then it started to like get some traction and I was like, oh, okay, hang on, never mind, let's maybe try and be a little more structured about this. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. That's kind of the way I started out too, where it was just making videos, and then I switched to more structured, let's say, content that got less views, but I enjoyed making it more.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's only so many meme videos that you can make before it starts to rot your brain away.
I believe it. I always was like, man, mad respect for the amount of work that goes into some of the meme videos, though. Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
never really
definitely.
had it in me. And I'm also not like a super memey guy, but I enjoy meme videos. I just don't have it in me to like make them because the
To
amount
make
of
them, yeah.
editing, people
It's
don't
a lot.
realize it's like it's more heavily edited than pretty much any other kind of content.
Yeah, and it's also like, especially with mine, there's like a balance there where you gotta find it. Is this too annoying? Like if I put a joke here, does it make the
Uh-huh.
video
Yeah, how
too
far is
overwhelming?
too far?
Yeah,
Is that a
yeah,
thing? Yeah. No, I
yeah. But
definitely get
anyway,
that.
yeah. Let's go ahead and shift the topic at hand. I mean, I don't know. I saw like I woke up in like a stupor with people like pinging me like you got to see this when like five people in my Discord were like, "Yo, you got to check out the Warriors Den like right now." I'm like, "Oh
Uh-huh.
my God.
You're like, wait a
What,
minute,
what's
is it
what,
happening?
what's happening now?" Yeah. Like,
I
but yeah, I
know.
was pleasantly surprised with it. I mean, if you want to give your thoughts on it first, I mean, I don't know
Yeah, I
how to
mean, I
this is
guess we
like an
can just go
impromptu
through
like
like the
podcast
individual
thing, yeah.
changes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. Um, I mean, I guess I'll just start with a general overview impression, right?
Yeah.
Like, I actually think it's good, and I feel
Yeah.
bad if my like, I did get, I think some people took my community post in a way that was like that I was negative about the changes, and I'm not
Yeah.
negative about the changes. I just wanted to explain why I wasn't probably going to be making more content on the changes than I am.
Right, right,
Like, I'll
right.
definitely make some videos. I'll be around. There's no way I won't be around, but I just, I think the nature of it is it's really great that some of these changes are happening in the game that have been needed for so long for so many
Oh, yeah.
heroes. However, we are on, what is it, year six, what have
It's
you?
gonna be
And
year seven,
so,
yeah.
yeah, gonna be year seven. And so, just learning a new iteration of everything once again
That's
is kind of a lot sometimes. And
I
I,
yeah, I agree, but I was actually like firmly impressed by because they went into it by saying like, hey, we were listening to the community when they were bitching about Highlander for 5 years, more
mhm.
about but yeah, like literally everybody that plays this hero has been saying the same shit for years at this point. And what I really appreciated was them coming in and saying like, "Hey, we know
It was
everybody that
almost
plays
one of the
Highlander."
first things they said, which I thought
Yeah,
was valuable. I was
yeah,
like,
and
ooh, if I was streaming this, I'd point this out. But the first
yeah,
thing they said was, if you've played Highlander before, you can play Highlander now. And
yeah,
that, I
and
think they
also
meant
that they
that.
were like, we didn't want to remove things because people enjoy how Highlander plays. They didn't want to like remove identity from him, which I think is really important. With a lot of these reworks, sometimes they like go away from the
It
quote
has
unquote
happened for sure.
identity
I
of the
feel like
character.
we've had good ones, we've had
Yeah,
not as good
definitely.
ones, but generally I've been pretty pleased with most reworks. But I
Yeah.
would say that, I thought I've said a million times that no matter what they do, I'll hate it because it's
Yeah.
not, that was just kind of a joke. I didn't really
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
that, but I was just making a point that's like, the amount of time I've put into this hero, any change at all is gonna be like a rough thing for me. I'm
It's
gonna
gonna
feel,
be a little bit. It's gonna take a
but
bit to get used to, I think.
me being as
But
positive on this initially is shocking to me, because I
yeah,
really do
I went
like
into it extremely
the
nervous because
vast majority of it.
I was like, what the fuck? Okay, the track record with like with some of the reworks like this, where they've kind of like removed things from kits that I found um very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Um, for
Or
instance,
just
like
standardized things.
let's rewind the clock 4 years to the beginning of year two. That season 5 big change where Valk got a buff, Highlander got a buff, Kensei got a buff. I feel old, but what they did with Valkyrie was they removed literally every interesting aspect of her kit and then kept her like that for 3 more years
Yeah.
until they reworked her again, and she's felt awful until they reworked her recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, my concern going in is they were gonna fundamentally change how offensive stance worked, and I didn't want them to do that, and I'm really glad to see that they really didn't do that.
They didn't.
I
It seems like they're at least somewhat aware of like kind of the general Highlander community's feelings on the
Yeah,
matter as it goes, which is a silly thing to say. But like, I really do think that Highlander has maybe a bigger like, or a more dedicated, I should say, like
oh
cult
yeah,
following than many heroes.
I
That's not to
completely
say
agree.
above and beyond all, but I have people who have been watching and commenting on every single Highlander specific video because it's Highlander, because they love that hero,
Yeah,
and things like our community montages and some of the other Highlander focused stuff we do. It works because people just love this hero because, yeah, you can put, you know, many have put 70 reps in multiple
yeah,
times over with multiple accounts and yet are still progressing and getting continuously better with and not just better at the game in general, but better with the hero and like the understanding of the minutia of his kit, which
yeah,
theoretically none of that is going away, and
yeah.
that
Theoretically,
is
and
pretty
that's a
cool.
good thing.
Hmm.
I was when I saw the offensive stance changes. I there's one change in offensive stance that I like. Uh, I absolutely lost my shit when I saw the offensive stance dodge caber toss. I
Yeah.
think that's
So
a bit
if we
silly.
go over all of them, like I think there's a lot of cool stuff. That is one that
Yeah,
I'm like
I
interesting.
I think
Okay,
that's a
I
bit
don't know that
silly.
I totally get it, but I will say so. Like the caber toss being faster addresses the
Yeah,
whole. I mean, that's really the main issue with caber toss. You're like, okay, there's a million moves in this game that can put someone on the ground for some team damage, and none of them really take a, as long with as little benefit as caber toss, and so
yeah,
speeding that up I think is a positive thing, but putting it on dodge I'll definitely miss like weaving in and out of attacks and then getting a kick. Now it's like weaving in and out of attacks and then getting a caber toss. I don't know.
yeah. It I
Maybe.
Yeah, I that's a good point. I actually didn't think about the flow. I'm more thinking of how busted it's gonna be because like it might be fine, it might not. It's like I equated it to. I don't think it's making it to live. I equated it to that one testing grounds where Shinobi got a sickle rain off GB.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah, yeah.
it's a little bit weird.
I
I
don't
think
know that
that
it'll make it
definitely
either.
I didn't see the need for it. I mean, kick is basically his dodge attack and offensive stance.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I in my opinion,
I
it's
didn't
not
see the
needed.
reason to change it and make his
Yeah,
offensive stance dodge attack that or just dodge into offensive light. But either
yeah,
way, like I didn't think they needed to make that you know, a CC move that throws your, opponent on the ground. Like, that might be a bit far, but I don't know.
it's a bit weird, but
It's not gonna really matter. It's not like you couldn't
yeah,
dodge and then caber toss regardless. I
yeah. I
mean,
mean, you could still do it. It's just a bit faster now, but
yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
confirmed on a basically on a dodge now.
Yeah. But
All
yeah,
right,
so let's go through the defensive stance changes first.
defensive stance. I'll start with the negative. I think it's really stupid they removed the hyper armor on the chain light. It is now a 500 ms chain light with no properties, and I think that's a bit
You could
egregious.
arguably say if they haven't changed it, which it's hard to say until we get in and test stuff.
Yeah,
Like, will there be undocumented changes? Probably.
yeah, that's the thing. If it's not an enhanced light now, it
Well, so
is.
enhanced is one thing,
Yeah,
and the other like little secret property it has that probably doesn't matter that much, but it's a Highlander thing, is that it has medium hits done. And
That's
so
right.
you
It
can
does.
flow into a kick from,
Yeah,
if you confirm that second light, you can get a kick that cannot be interrupted by your opponent's light. Whereas
that
if you
is
just do the
that is
first
correct. Yeah.
light and go into a kick, you can get interrupted out of that. So that's a really minor thing. I don't think most people are going to be like, oh no. But if that was gone as well, yeah, that would be a pretty underwhelming chain light.
I
But
I do think that
right
like
now it's a little busted. It's arguably
yeah,
one of the best chain lights in the game. So
and
changing it in some way, I think, is pretty reasonable.
I think there's nothing wrong with it. And like let me defend my point here because like
For sure.
the reasons that they cited for its removal were not all the reasons that it's strong. The reason they removed it per the Warriors Den was because people were complaining about spam.
Well, they're
And
talking
that's
about
the wrong
health.
yeah. That's the wrong reason to remove something, regardless of their internal reason. Like, I would much rather they came out and say, like, the nitty, which they have no problem doing for the rest of the Warriors Den, where they explain
Mhm.
why they made a change. But for this specifically, they said we removed it because people just mashed the button, and I find that a very underwhelming explanation, and I just don't want to cater to Reddit, especially with my fucking beloved Highlander. I do not want
Sure.
to cater to the people that are whining about light spam because just period. I'm gonna be completely honest. Just and if you're gonna trade anyway, you go to the heavy. So you do the light on a read to get into offensive stance to kick. Like that's what most higher
Yeah, you
level
can use
Highlanders
it
do.
to trade. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna trade, and so even if you lose the trade, though, you may come out ahead in
Yeah,
frame
because of
advantage
the
and be able to
kick.
get some offensive
Yeah.
stance damage in or whatever else. But one thing
Yeah.
I will make a little bit of a, not that I disagree with what you're saying, because I think at most
Right, right,
levels
right.
that's very true. And especially they obviously they made it known, hey, this is not about relatively high level play that we're talking about here. This
Hmm.
is overall health, which it's fair to admit, for a lot of folks with less time in the game, you can still, or even system requirements and things that make reacting to lights, especially with hyper armor and other things, very difficult. And so I will say that although it's definitely counterable and reasonable at a certain level, doing things, if you're going to be buffing him in other ways, in so many ways, which they are, there are
Right, right.
plenty of things that are going to be vastly more powerful. Doing something like this that will improve the experience of the average player while still maybe controlling how overpowered Highlander could be if they weren't making some of these, little nerf changes. Like another one is damage, right? We'll get to talk about
Yeah.
that in a minute. But some of these things, if you didn't change, may not affect high level play that much. Highlander may have been able to keep his damage as it was, and at a high level, it's not going to really make a difference if he's not, if he doesn't end up being A tier or something.
Hmm.
But that being said, at medium and lower levels of play, I think that's probably going to be an appreciated change. And I know that a lot of folks, if you're on YouTube in the comments and you're looking at our videos, you'll get a
Yeah.
lot of folks that are like, oh, well, Highlander's already broken as fuck. So what are
Yeah.
they doing? Highlander's the most broken hero in the game, which I get is sort of a meme because most higher level
Yeah.
players know that's not the case. Um, but that being said, there is definitely a dichotomy in the experience between different players on differing
100%.
systems at different levels.
Highlander has always been a noob stomper, so
And
I
noob
completely
stompers, it
yeah.
is a shitty experience, and
Yeah.
I'm totally willing to acknowledge that. That was a really long, drawn out way of saying that.
No,
But
no, no.
noob
I think
stompers
you
are not fun for new players, and if it doesn't need to be that way, I can respect changing it.
yeah, I think your verbose explanation was needed. I'll keep that in because it's just like it just you explained your point very well. So yeah, I see it from both sides. Like I feel like it was an unnecessary change, but now I do understand why
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
coming
in
from
my
a
lobbies,
different
it
perspective.
got
Yeah.
parried like 3 out of 5
Oh
times.
yeah.
I pretty much
It
couldn't
always gets
use it the
yeah.
vast majority of the time. But
It
that the
always gets
reason
parried
for
unless you make
that
a
is because in
yeah.
other lobbies it works very well, and
Yeah.
so a lot of Highlanders used it. So
Yeah.
that's a reasonable
Um
point.
but anyway, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be we'll see. Like if they just forgot to mention like Alex, like again, if that's the trade-off that I have to have for this to be in the live game, I'll take it. Like,
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
I'll take it as a package.
Of all the
Yeah.
casualties we could have
Of
had,
all the
this is
yeah.
one that I guess I can accept.
Yeah,
All
they could
things
have like
considered.
done something really stupid and just removed something from the kit entirely, which I would have had a
I'm
fit
very
about.
I can't
Yeah.
really think of anything that's been just totally axed. I mean, so let's talk about a
Yeah.
couple of the main
Yeah.
points, right? So one being, so I'll just go into some positives, right?
Right.
General health thing, backstep light option select.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
I
No,
commented.
totally fair,
I
reasonable.
I
Good
commented
point.
on this
Touche,
when
gotcha. Like,
when I first started streaming to react to it. Like I commented on it. I like paused their stream and I was like, okay, guys, hear me out. This is good.
right.
Like it's like backstep lighting, as fun as it is to do, not fun to get backstep lighted at all. Like, and
Well, and just in the interest of standardization
yeah,
and
and
removing option selects and doing thing, that was
there's something to
pretty
be
necessary.
said from removing it from Highlander. I think BP can still do it, so they need to touch him up as well.
Afira
But
can do it.
yeah, Afera can do it.
Yeah, there's a
But
couple.
that's a
But
separate
at least we
argument.
know they
Yeah,
know about it. I mean,
yeah,
it's, and obviously they have for a long time, but
and
it's good change.
you don't really need to do it anymore because this is probably, I think, the low-key best change they made. Faint recovery flow into OF. Like, what the
Yeah,
holy
I
shit, that's
mean,
huge.
it's kind of wild to wrap my head
Yeah,
around, honestly.
that's huge. Like
I can't
that
really, yeah.
I'm thinking
It
about
is huge.
and in year one, I think it was called the Hound of Terror parry, where he would flow out and there's no animation between him flowing out and parrying. So it was just like bam. And like that shit is going to be more common now, or is going to be easier to do now, I think, because you can flow into OF out and then back in.
You
Like
definitely
it's
can.
gonna,
So
yeah,
that's one of those
yeah,
things that I don't think, even if they, which I don't know to what extent they are or are not aware of the whole, community tech situation
yeah,
surrounding exiting offensive stance without delay and without stamina cost and the other things that can be done. I don't know. I'm guessing they probably know about it, and I don't know whether they will or won't have done anything, but I wouldn't have expected them to talk about it. So that's
yeah.
one thing that I think we will just have to get our hands on it. Since they didn't
Uh huh.
mention it, I'm kind of optimistic and I'm like, okay, maybe there still is a small delay and maybe the tech
Yeah,
still does something. And maybe, I know they reduced the stamina cost. So the tech to exit
yeah.
offensive stance without
That's another thing
stamina
where
cost is not anywhere
yeah,
near as important, but maybe it still exists.
yeah.
And that's not super important, but for me, that will just be a fun thing because I spent hundreds of hours perfecting very tip of
Right.
the iceberg minor tech that does a very small thing in the grand scheme of the game. And so I'll be happy if that's still there, but it's not
Sometimes I
really a
s-
necessary
sometimes
thing.
I still do the offensive stance option select out of
That's
muscle
that's
memory.
another one. So
That's
that brings up a
yeah.
point I wanted to mention a second ago, which is that
Yeah,
removing things that are
unhealthy.
unhealthy and
Yeah.
broken, like option selects, right? The offensive stance option select is an infamous example a lot of people didn't even
Oh
know
god, it was
about.
busted. Yeah.
But I mean, it was truly so busted. So you had a hero that wasn't really that great with one move that made them unbeatable,
Yeah.
and it created a situation where they couldn't realistically buff Highlander because then Highlanders and ranked duel that were using the offensive stance option select and just ranking in wins would have an even easier time, and it would be even more imbalanced and more people would get salty about it. So they couldn't buff the hero, but it took a little bit to actually implement whatever changes needed to be done to
Yeah.
fix it. And so doing things like removing backstamp CC option select means that some of these other buffs that are really powerful
Yeah.
can land without creating a broken hero.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I'm just excited to play around with it. Like I like this is the first time I've been actually like pumped to play For Honor in
Uh-huh.
years. And
Yeah.
it's just like a lot of the stuff they showed off is really exciting. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Out of my like hundreds of hours of complaining about how bad Highlander is, why haven't I ever thought about why maybe he should be able to feint in fast flow into offensive stance. Like that's just
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever thought of
yeah,
that one either. It's one of those
yeah,
things. I had some ideas that I think would have worked. They didn't really do any of them, but what they did seems
yeah.
to have worked pretty well. I had some zone ideas that were very different from what we got, but I
I
think that
like
what
the
we
zone
got is
changes.
pretty cool. And
Yeah,
so
let's talk about
I'm just curious about it.
Hellalander.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, no, it's
Highlander
crazy.
copter.
Highlander copter. I mean, so first of all, with the immense increase in hyper armor, I mean, now he's
Hmm.
realistically like I can't really think of a hero with more hyper armor.
He's going I
He's pretty
prediction
much.
he'll be really, really good at mid lane in
Oh, that was
specifically in
like, yeah,
Dominion.
that was
He's gonna
everybody's
be
immediate reaction. Yeah.
because they said 500 MS startup for the first zone hit, right?
Hmm.
Which is also now faintable, so that's awesome.
I thought that was
Um,
wild. Yeah, I haven't
yeah.
seen a zone that. Are there any other zones you can faint before the? Oh
Um,
well, Raider and stuff, but
Yorms. I think you can do it on Yorms.
yeah, I guess there are a few, but
Yeah,
I was definitely
but
surprised.
it's rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely like I laughed my ass off when he changed from zone into the offensive, not the offensive, into the defensive
Well, the
heavy
target
finisher.
switching
Yeah,
potential, all of that. I mean, it's
yeah,
definitely pretty crazy, and there's a lot of hyper armor now. So
yeah. So
lowering the
it'll
damage was probably wise.
yeah it'll be really neat to see how it performs, and like he can defend himself in a team fight now, which is gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean I've landed some meme kills with the Highlander zone in my time, like,
Mm-hmm.
but
Oh,
but
it
it's
it
act
it can happen.
legitimately it looks good now. Like I'm excited to get into a team fight and just start spinning around like an idiot.
Zone into heavy into
Yeah,
wait, I'm in offensive stance. Guess what? Coming off a zone.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Zone into full zone into heavy finisher, feint the heavy finisher into offensive stance, go feint offensive stance into the zone again, then repeat.
Yeah, definitely gonna be a crazy time, no doubt
Yeah,
about
that'll
it.
be fun. What else did they do in defensive stance?
Okay, so defensive stance, we talked about damage changes. We
Mhm.
talked
Oh,
about
the heavy off
hyper
guard break.
armor. Heavy off guard break was one I was like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Because right now, all three sides of the same damage, same speed.
yeah,
And that's just kind of a comfy place, but I've always liked, technically you're differentiating the moveset even more. Now you've got what was one move from three directions is now two moves.
yeah.
And so I think it's pretty cool. I was
I
originally
like it.
thinking
Yeah,
they would just make the zone a better guard break punish that costs less
right.
stamina, and that would have been my thought on how they'd fix it. But this works just as well or better, so
I am
I'm
okay.
cool with it.
So
And top, if you're gonna pick a direction, top
yeah,
is obviously
top
the
is
right
yeah.
one because I can do it without hitting my teammates in a
I
team
am a
fight.
bit sad you can land defensive stance heavies on light parry now.
I
I don't know
kind of
why.
am too. I
Yeah,
thought
I
it was a
think it.
cool skill where you were
Yeah,
like, okay, have you
were
put
you?
at least a minute into Highlander to
Yeah,
learn how to fast flow into? And I was shocked to see in the live stream how many people didn't know that he could do that before. Like a lot of people, I saw a lot of reactions that were like 27 damage on a light parry. That's a lot. And I'm like, it's currently
uh,
more than that.
yeah. It's
His
30.
light parry, if you do the defensive, I didn't see all the damage numbers. I don't know if offensive heavies still do the same amount as their
Offensive heavies
defensive
now do
counterparts.
26 damage, which is a
26.
change
So
that
it's optimal not to
it's
do
optimal
the
not to do it, which is
no.
something that I think it should
That
be the
is a
same
bummer.
damage if they do it on um if they're going to make the defensive stance heavy his if you sorry, let me I just stammered. If they're going to make the defensive stance heavy possible off of a light parry, it should do the same damage as the offensive stance heavy. Or vice versa, cuz I think that's just going to fuck with my muscle memory
It's
so
gonna
bad.
fuck with my muscle
I'm going to
memory, and
yeah.
I thought it was cool. But I will make an argument to the contrary that is that I think if you're looking at like a health of the game and
Oh yeah,
reasons
100%.
for people to pick up and play the hero and all this stuff, Highlander did have a disadvantage that nobody ever really talks about in parrying. It's kind of minor, it's definitely pretty circumstantial, but with other heroes, especially heroes with hyper armor heavies, it's kind of a bonus that if you go for a light parry and maybe they threw a heavy and fainted and then tried to
Hmm.
do something else or did whatever and they didn't actually throw that light, your heavy will sail through and maybe they GB or do whatever, and you might still get
Right.
some damage. Worst case scenario, you throw a heavy that you can then maybe faint. With Highlander, if you're going for a light, you have to know if you're going for a
Hmm.
zone versus a light parry, right? If there's a fast zone that's 500 ms and a 500 ms light that you're trying to, that you're predicting or think you're going to try and parry, you have to know which one it's going to be. If you think you're going to get a left side light and instead you get an Orochi zone and you've done the fast flow into offensive hold parry, you don't get that. There are
Right.
other things you can feint that into a kick, and then it's a mix up, and there's other stuff you can do that's really cool, and I thought that was fun. But it was a bit of a downside that if you go for a parry, and you're expecting it to be a light, you have to flow into offensive and make yourself
Yeah.
vulnerable to do it.
That's just a quirk of the hero. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, it's a
It'll be.
minor one, but I
It is
do
a
think
very,
it's a
very
quirk,
minor
and I thought
complaint.
it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it was weaker, and so this is a buff. Like
Yeah.
his
It is a buff.
parrying is just better.
Yeah. I am still gonna flow into offensive. I'm gonna be 100% honest.
You're like,
Like,
fuck
I'm
you.
still
I'm
gonna
gonna
do
show
it.
you that I'm an OG
Yeah.
Highlander,
Yeah.
even though it's worse damage wise.
Yeah. By one, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just gonna be a reflex thing. I'm not even gonna think about it.
Well, I still do the thing
Yeah.
where if I kick somebody and instead of if they hit a wall off the kick, instead of just hitting them with the offensive heavy that you get, I'll hit them with the defensive heavy just for the sake of it, even though it does the same
Oh.
damage nowadays. It didn't
Yeah.
used to. It used to be better to take your defensive damage on that wall splat, but now it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
or at least in live currently.
Yeah. The damage nerfs. I actually wanted to bring because a lot of people. Uh, I don't know if I've seen this recently, but like when I first suggested this, I had a video like right after the CCU came out,
Mm-hmm.
and where Highlander got his light enhanced
Yeah.
or his light sped up, and people were like, "Oh my god, the animation's so broken."
Yeah.
Um, I made a video saying like just because the light animation is broken doesn't mean that Highlander's any better in the tier list. Like I'm just saying like
Uh-huh.
just so that was the entire video. I was like he hasn't changed anywhere. He's in the same space. His light's just more usable now. And that's a good thing. Please don't ruin this for us. This is like the first
I
bit of
think I
attention
remember
that
that
yeah.
video.
But yeah, like it's kind of that where I said in that video that I wanted them to nerf the offensive stance heavy damage further from down from they nerfed it to 30, and then I was like, I'm willing to see it go down further because it's a it's unhealthy to be to have 30 damage off of essentially
Hmm.
a dodge.
Yeah.
And I like when that video came out, there was a little bit of pushback being like, "Oh,
There
I
was.
don't want to play Highlander if he has any lower damage." And it's just like
Well, I
I
mean, you got to remember where we
yeah.
came from before that. I
Yeah.
mean, shit, he did so much
Oh
damage
my god,
before.
remember
For
remember
years, it was the classic three
40.
shot. It was that you
Yeah.
had three. You could mess up the offensive stance. You could make the wrong read on the offensive stance mix up twice. If
Mhm.
you did it a third time, you died, no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if you took no other damage, that was it. It was the three for, and then that is no longer the
Highlander's
case with
40
the
damage
vast
offensive
majority of
stance
heroes.
heavy. I remember that. That
Yeah,
was
it was wild.
how yeah, I remember thinking it was too high when they made that change. I
Yeah.
was like, "What? 40 damage, huh?" Uh that was in season 5. Jesus, I'm old. But anyway, like yeah, they this is all to say the damage is fine in my opinion. Um I
Hmm.
think that I think that them lowering the damage where they lowered it is mostly okay. I I think that the crushing counter being lowered to 18 is a bit but it's like whatever. Again, it's a whole package, right? Where I'm looking at it as a whole. Like if I have to sacrifice 2 damage and my hyper armor on my chain light for the rest of the changes that we get, I'm completely fine with that.
Right.
But yeah, feintable kick. I've been saying it for
Feintable
years.
kick is wild. I didn't
I've been
think
saying
they'd
it for
ever do
years.
it.
Most Highlander players have been saying it for years. It's finally happening. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like everything else. I ultimately think it's a good thing. It's not what
Mm-hmm.
I had imagined in terms of like the look of the gameplay and the feel. Like it's not exactly what I wanted because it makes it
Mm-hmm.
more similar to other mix-ups of that variety.
Right.
So that's a little bit of standardization, which is somewhat sad to see, but also ultimately healthy. And so it's kind of one of those things that I'll just say it's probably good, but
Yeah.
you know,
I will
I
say
thought it
though,
was a
like
little
we've
bit
been
of a bummer.
waiting for this change, and I've been complaining about this for so long
Yeah.
that characters have come out in the meantime that
Yep.
have used this style of mix-up that you can feint the first part of it.
Totally.
So I think that, like, while that is valid, I think that the Highlander to make Highlanders kick feintable argument precedes a lot of the characters that came out afterwards that have this type of feintable bash mix-up.
Yeah.
Uh, which is again, like, it's still a valid like concern about standardization. However, it's been around, like, we've been in this boat for a while.
Yeah, I don't even
So
really think it's a concern. It's more just
yeah,
like an acknowledgement. But
yeah,
yeah, I think
100%.
it's ultimately a good thing. One thing that I think is like a very once again minor tip of the iceberg kind of like I guess side effect of this change is that the emote no longer does anything. Not that it really did anything before, but the theory of the emote was that you could kind of use it to fake a kick, right? You're not
Mm,
really, it's not the same animation, but it's vaguely similar and you're wiggling around in
yeah,
front of them in offensive stance.
I
And so
always
if
used it to
they're waiting for the twitch to dodge that
right.
kick, then, you know, it actually did kind of work if you,
Yeah,
you know, were creative about it and
it
sparing.
might it might work. We'll have to play with it. But in
Because
my
now,
opinion,
like, just keep
it might
fainting that
work
kick.
better. In my opinion, like, it might, like, you could still use the emote to psych people out, and depending on the timing or like the animation lock between when you can feint, you might be able to do some animation fuckery with the emote from the kick feint and do something else. Maybe, I don't know. Like, what I'm just like, Highlander's spaghetti. He's always been spaghetti. So I'm thinking about potential more spaghetti that's been introduced. But
Yeah.
they did say they cleaned up their inputs, so we'll see. But I'm thinking you might still be able to do some animation fuckery with, because there's a lot of you could wig out your sword with the emote a lot.
Oh yeah, you can
Um
do all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm sure that's all still there. I mean, if you're
yeah,
getting into the, I was talking about just kind of standard use of the emote.
right.
I'm all yeah. If you still want to wiggle in a circle and shake the Highlander booty and do all the stuff, then I mean, yeah, that's all still
You
there.
could, yeah,
If
you
you're
can,
building that into your mix up, then I'm pretty sure you can still do it.
yeah,
But
but like you can make
standard
your
emote
sword,
use is gonna change.
with the emote swap to a different side while you're lighting in a different direction. It's
Yeah,
really weird.
it
Like that
is.
you'll probably still be able to do that, but
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at it like, hey, maybe we can do some more animation fuckery instead of, I don't know. It'll
Right.
be it.
I
We'll
mean,
have to
one
see.
use is
Yeah,
still the tech where you can, you know, disguise
the light, I think.
well,
Right.
the guard switch changes, right? So
Right.
like
Yeah.
if I do a left side offensive heavy emote directly into a right side offensive light, you know, it'll disguise that change. That's still all there in those things. So
Right.
maybe I'll still use it. I don't know. I just see myself fainting that kick a lot more often, being more effective.
Oh yeah. The caber toss roll catch. Uh,
Yeah, I mean that's
I
kind
did.
of
I did not see that one coming. So what I thought they were going to do is obviously, I thought Celtic Curse was going to be the roll catch.
yeah, that was what everybody thought.
And I kind of see why they didn't do that. Like, my idea was you could dodge forward during the kick, and that would cancel you into Celtic Curse. So
Okay.
you
Like a
could
dodge
dodge
soft
forward.
feint out of stuff.
Yeah. So it's like I'm trying to find a move that's comparable. So, like, the branch is at 400 ms from kicking the caber. So anywhere from 1 to 400 ms, you could you could dodge forward, and it would cancel the kick, and then it would flow you directly into the forward dodge, and then you could Celtic Curse, which would roll catch. But this is interesting because it doesn't require you to leave offensive stance. So I think that's cool. So if
I think
somebody
it's cool
freaks
too.
out, if someone freaks out and rolls, you caber toss after them, like, get back here. And it's also really cool because
I just
Caber
think it would
toss-
have been cool. It might have been even a bigger buff, which would have been maybe not ideal. But if because they were saying that's essentially a product of them creating dodge into GB button equals the caber toss dodge attack, right? That is kind of the replacement of dodge into kick, at least as far as I can tell. It would be cool if that could be changed depending on current input of whether you're walking forward or backward.
Oh,
But it would be kind of weird to do
that would be
it
very
on a
weird,
forward dodge. To do like forward dodge into caber would be like a weird input. Like
that would be
push,
like
walk
a
forward,
traditional
dodge forward, and then you'd have to switch your walk direction like while you're still moving and input.
That would be like a traditional fighting game input almost.
It would, and I'm
like forward, back,
for it.
X. Yeah,
I'm here for it. But that being said, it's definitely good on the forward dodge. I'd still rather have kicks available on the side dodges.
I think.
But
my prediction for how this testing ground is going to go is most stuff is going to go over very well.
Also, does this mean we can't dodge forward into kick anymore?
Yes. It depends on the timing, but yes, I think that is what that means. I'm pretty sure you could dodge forward delay kick, but
yeah, I wonder how long the delay has to be. But yeah, you can't just dodge forward straight into it.
Yeah, that. Yeah. I'm willing to sacrifice it on to have a roll catch. I'm okay.
For sure. And just to clarify for anybody watching this later, like these are kind of extreme nitpicks of the situation from people who have spent a lot of time playing this hero. But it doesn't mean like, yes, these are still vastly good across the board. Yes, we are nitpicking. Yes, we're aware of
it. Yeah, I mean, I just nitpicking I think is fine because we're both
it's
like
not an expression of my overall feelings, but I like to dig into the minutia. Overall, that's like the point of my channel, right? I mean, my Highlander guides dig into the micro minutia of how the hero plays, and
we're both
helpful.
Very technically knowledgeable about the hero, so we like understand that some weird things about it might not be translating over, and it's completely fine to point that out, I think. So that we're just gonna nitpick. That's all Highlander is just nitpicking.
Yep. Well, and it's not like we haven't done this many times before.
Yeah.
I mean, when Highlanders changed in the past, I remember when was it? It was whenever the post CCU changes with the second light and everything we were talking about earlier, and damage changes, all that stuff. When all that happened and the lights being sped up and all that, it was me, Vulture, Spy, who is now Boss the Habibi, and somebody else all jumped into and Musculus. We all jumped into like a similar session, and we just in training just messed around for hours and hours and just kind of refigured out how all the little stuff worked. The Highlander mirror changed a ton at that point, and like it was good for the hero, but that doesn't mean we didn't break down all the specific scenarios that were going to be different.
I let you in on a little secret. I hate Highlander mirrors.
Really?
I can't stand them. Yeah.
Have you always felt that way, or is that
I think I've always felt that way. Yeah. When I dueled Hound, I told him I was like, I don't like these Highlander mirrors. And he agreed with me. He was like, yeah, it's basically just staring at somebody. Like
I feel like that changed over time though.
It has changed a little bit.
Current state Highlander mirrors quite a bit.
I don't think it's quite as bad as it used to be. But I'm just of the opinion I just don't like mirror matches that much. I mean,
I think that's a common, that's an understandable point of view.
Like Berserker mirror matches are funny. I think that's the only mirror match that I actually like.
Yeah.
But like Berserker and Raider, I think are funny mirror matches. Highlander mirror matches, if they both know what they're doing, it can drag on quite a bit because it's just like, all right, well, they're both offensive stance dodging everything, and then, he just got light parried. Now they're both back to neutral. They're just staring at each other. That's how it used to be. But,
Well, and
but
then,
yeah,
if you're playing optimally, like dodging back out of range of everything,
yeah.
that was like the ranked dual strat pretty much
Oh
for
God,
Highlander was
yeah,
hit them, dodge backwards, wait for them to
yeah.
re-engage, kick them, or throw an offensive heavy
Oh
when
yeah.
they dodge
Speaking
forward.
of little
Uh-huh.
nitty gritty
Or
technical
just
details,
endless lights.
did you notice they and they said this, not only did you notice, they increased the distance offensive stance dodge travels.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, they
I
both
missed that.
said that, and I noticed it before they said it, but I didn't want to like say it
That would
while I was watching it because I
be,
thought my stream was
yeah.
gonna think I was schizo or something.
Huh. No,
But
if
yeah,
that's the case, that's cool.
they increased the distance offensive stance dodge travels, which is weird.
I mean, that would
Um,
be kind of nice
yeah,
to sort of, just accentuate the value of offensive stance. Because
and
I still think
not weird in a
overall,
bad way. It's weird that they decided to change that because I personally wouldn't think to change that, but that's why I'm not a game dev on For Honor, I guess.
I wouldn't have thought to. No,
Yeah.
not at all. But I'm definitely here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it too.
uh,
Also, usable run speed, finally.
oh
Fuck.
yeah, I mean, the fact that that got changed, and that's like the fact that there are big enough changes that that's not like the what we opened with,
Yeah.
and it took us however long it's been to
It's been
even
40
mention it.
minutes.
Yeah, like that's wild. It's
Yeah.
an absolutely fundamental, huge quality of life change that we've all wanted for a bajillion years.
And I will dispense more hot takes upon you. I hate testing grounds. And
Like the whole
changes like
concept of doing
that
it.
are why. Because you don't need a testing grounds to
Sure.
tell me that that is a good change.
Yeah, I think they're
Like
just
I
trying to keep it
understand it
neat
for
by
the rest of the
rolling all
kit.
out at once.
Yeah. I understand it for the rest of the kit, right? But like there is zero reason why that couldn't have been implemented 3 years ago. And that's why I dislike testing grounds, because now we're gonna wait 9 months to actually see this on the live server.
Is it that
And
long, really?
yeah, I mean, usually because Lawbringer went through 2 rounds of testing grounds and is now coming out, so it's been 6 months
True. I
for
don't know if
him.
this will be a 2-round situation, but
I hope
yeah,
it's not.
fair enough.
There's never been a precedent for this, but like what I want testing grounds to be is test it, release it next season.
Right.
Just do something with it. Like I really don't care if it's busted. Because you can always make changes to the live game. Just put it in there. I'm tired of waiting. Like I've been waiting for 6 years. Like I'm really tired of waiting on Highlander changes. Test
I
it,
know.
then push
I
it
get
out.
it.
But also like there's no reason why Highlander sprint speed cannot be changed next week with the patch just in the live server. Like you can
Sure.
just do that. You don't need to test that. And that's why I feel that testing grounds has become something that I dislike, is because like it takes so long to get these changes out. And I understand, like I know game development is very hard. I used to work in the industry. It's rough, okay? Like I understand that there's like a million lines of QA you have to do. I
Sure.
understand that there is like a million checklists that you have to go through. But this game is almost 7 years old, Ubisoft. The content drip feed is getting a little bit
Well,
ridiculous.
with something like this
Um,
that you like, it couldn't really possibly do any harm. I
yeah,
definitely get where you're coming from for sure.
yeah, it's like the run speed. Like that's all I'm on about now. Is just I
But you know
understand why
what?
they're
I'm
testing
glad
the rest
we've
of it.
got it. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna say, I'm not gonna say anything in case fate decides to take away my
yeah,
run speed and we
yeah,
end up being the same when it's released, just for having this conversation.
yeah.
Uh,
Fuck.
no, but for real,
Um,
that is a huge one for sure.
um, I
Definitely
am very
positive.
glad they're not removing anything in offensive stance. I was worried they were gonna remove the vestigial, um,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we
feints.
just have to find out. Like, we
Yeah,
will see if there
they
are
did say that
undocumented stuff.
if they didn't mention it, they didn't change
They
it
did
or
say
remove
that.
it. Yeah.
Like, we'll see, but yeah, I
Um,
think that's great.
yeah, I
It means if they
it,
know about his little tech stuff and the different things, which I'm sure they do, that
they
they
do, and
recognize that it's not hurting anything.
yeah, JC specifically mentioned that, um, that they didn't want to remove anything from the kit, and the only thing they removed was the hyper armor on the light. That's the only thing they outright removed from the kit.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic. We'll see when we get our hands on it.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm optimistic that most of his tech is still going to be in there.
Yeah.
And the stupid offensive stance into kick feint is still going to be there, which is going to be fun. Like that thing shouldn't work, but it does sometimes, and I always laugh when it does.
Oh, I know. It's pretty great.
Um,
Yeah, no, definitely a fan of that. I was trying to think about other changes. I'm sure there are probably a couple things that we haven't talked about, but
yeah, I'm trying to rack my
I
brain.
feel like that more or less covers most of what would be changing.
I think that feint change is huge, and it's like I want that yesterday. Like that sounds like
It's
so
very
much
cool.
fun.
I'm definitely excited for it.
He's the proper stance switch hero now, which I think is like they kept that identity. I know that word gets thrown around a lot.
It does, but I think with Highlander, it's arguably more valid and more.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
substantial than with most heroes. It's probably a controversial thing to say, but that being said, I do think Highlander, in terms of moveset identity, had a more, intricate, involved moveset identity than most heroes.
Yeah, I know. It's like at this point, it's just two people agreeing with each other. But like, I do agree. Like, I feel like, I sincerely feel that like Highlander's kit has something special about it, and the identity of its kit is why people have played this hero for so long, and why it has a sort of like cult around it, and it's not like the Lawbringer cult. Like I'll
Lawbringer does have a similar
Yeah.
thing though. Like it's less about the moveset though, and most will admit that. Like the whole Lawbringer thing, it's not that like I mean, I'm going out on a limb here. I'm not a Lawbringer player. Please don't crucify me. But I think generally it has more to do with the persona and the attitude and the look and the different things of the hero than it has to do with his moveset just being that cool and intricate and, detailed. I that's my personal take on the situation. Whereas with Highlander, I think Highlander players are like, yeah, Highlander's cool. Big Scotsman, big sword, whatever. But our fashion's not that crazy. Like it was never really about that. It was about the dance, as it were. And it sounds silly, but you put enough time in Highlander, it starts to feel that way. The fact that you can still, I mean, I have rep 70'd Highlander over 3 times and played on rep 70 accounts from there many times, many hours, and yet I still get a little bit better every time I play him, and that's
oh god, that's just
gonna stay that way, I think, and that's
I'm just like cringing at how bad I'm gonna be when I come back next week.
And I think what's cool is if this goes the way that I predict it might, some of that tech we were talking about, what I would call a stam switch and wave switch, these things I think could get even more valuable if that delay is still there. And because if I can, for example, right now, instead of like, okay, I go from my second defensive light chain into offensive stance and then wave switch out to catch a parry, I can do it. I can throw an offensive heavy feint back into offensive, wave switch out and parry an immediate light that's trying to interrupt anything there. Like it might just double the amount of situations that I can bait exit offensive stance for a light parry. Like that's just cool.
Yeah.
It might not.
Complete agreement.
But it might,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you didn't like that. It's just interesting to hear that you didn't like the Highlander mirrors, because man, I like lived for Highlander mirrors for a long time.
Yeah,
did you know I made a 5-hour duel video of different
I saw
Highlander
it.
mirrors?
I was that's the first video of yours I was like, I'm not watching that.
You were like, why would he do that? What's funny is that I almost bricked a laptop doing it.
Oh,
jeez. I had this like, I have an old, it was, what is it? Is 2013 MacBook Pro or something? It was pretty decked out for the time, but 5 hours of, it was not super high quality footage. That was back when I was on Xbox One, but like,
wow.
It was, I almost killed my laptop making that. It took like 3 days.
That thing was coughing. It was crying for help when it was trying to render that thing. It was crying.
Yeah, that's some old gameplay now.
Does it still work?
That
The backboard?
laptop? It
Yeah.
does, with the exception of the
Oh,
battery. Everything's great about it,
okay.
but I need to put a whole new battery in it because the battery at this point won't even like hold enough charge to run while plugged in. But
Wow.
that's to be expected, and that was
Yeah.
my main edit. So of the however many, there's a couple. I don't even have made that many videos, but a couple hundred videos on my channel. That laptop made 90+% of them.
Damn.
Yeah, it was a little
Well,
workhorse.
cheers to that old workhorse. Yeah. Look at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
thing.
Cheers to it for sure.
Yeah, my old I used to play and edit on a Lenovo laptop that's sitting on my dresser, just playing white noise. It's now the designated white noise machine. I just use it to play like background noise because I have
Uh-huh.
tinnitus, so I need like
Oh,
stuff
sure. Yeah, something
in the
going on in the
background.
background. I get that. Yeah.
But yeah, like that thing was what I started my channel on. So, and it has the same problem where it can't survive, a little bit less so. It doesn't survive if you unplug it. It like the battery just,
Yep.
but
Yep.
it has to be plugged in.
Yeah.
But
It's good
anyway,
laptops, but that's,
yeah,
whatever. Standard maintenance, you gotta do it at some point. But you put
yep.
a new battery in them and then they're good. Yeah. No,
But
definitely
now I'm
good
on my
stuff.
good old rig that served me well for 5 years now. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with my rig right now. Like it's not super updated. I, got a new GPU when the 30 series came out, but other than that, I haven't really touched it in a while, and for what I played, does pretty well. More than enough for honor.
yeah, I'm still rocking a 1660 Ti.
Hey, there you go. Still a good
Yeah,
graphics card though.
that's a great card. Like
It is.
it still holds up. I'm running Baldur's Gate on Ultra, so it's like
Ah, yeah.
it's a wonderful card. Um,
How are you liking Baldur's Gate?
I finished it once. I'm on my second playthrough.
Oh.
I'm playing a Dragonborn Paladin now.
I'm a Dragonborn barbarian right now.
Nice. The Dragonborn looks so cool in the game.
Well,
Like
I
I
wasn't planning on making a Dragonborn at all, and then I got to the character creation screen and just decided to look at it, and I was like, "Oh, yeah,
I was
that's
like,
way
oh
cooler than I thought it was gonna be." Gotta
yeah,
do
they're
it.
wicked. They look so neat.
Definitely, Paladin's a strong choice for it.
Yeah, they it's in I did in a single turn like 120 damage on a single attack.
Oh god.
Because I crit and then Divine Smite, and then it rolled max damage on the Divine Smite, and it was just like, okay, well that guy's dead. Um,
Yeah, I wasn't interested in cleric at the start of the game, but I think just kind of random chance and a little bit of, just trying to make a decent build, but my Shadow Heart is like untouchable.
oh, she's
And
insane.
for folks who haven't played the game, this is like a very, very minor spoiler, not really a
Yeah,
spoiler, but there's a section where you have to, kind of fight against a mimic version of your own team. And
yeah, I just
like
did that fight.
iced my whole team except for fucking Shadowheart. And
Yeah,
then Shadowheart, there's like 3 or 4 of us, and it goes on like another 4 or 5 turns. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right
I
now?
can't hit
I
her.
can't kill my own Shadowheart? And she's just absolutely out of control. That was just kind of a mixture of
Yeah,
gear.
mine has like 25 AC now.
Yeah. Yeah, you can
She's
make her
nuts.
really
Yeah.
pretty nuts. And then I just kind of ended up with a bunch of gear that continuously buffed radiant damage.
Oh
And
God.
then, I don't know if you know
Spirit Guardians.
so Spirit Guardians, and then you get the Lathlander Blood Mace.
Yep.
So it's just stupid.
It's
Like,
stupid. Yeah.
it's just wrong. And then you have these gloves that do, so they create these orbs every time somebody's damaged by. So what they do is they make it so if an enemy takes radiant damage, there's basically an explosion that happens, and then it creates a floating white light above them that gives them a -1. That gives anything that light shines on a -1 attack roll. And so if you cast an AoE radiant spell on a bunch of enemies, they all explode on top of the normal radiant. They all create these light orbs that debuff all of them. And then, so like, there's another fight where you get swarmed by like a jillion undead, and I just do
Uh-huh.
one radiant AoE spell, and then I can't get hit for the next 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and it just
What
melts
what
everything.
item is that? I need
So
that.
it's not even, so I don't know if you can like move abilities from, I don't know if there's any like blacksmithing function or if you can move abilities from one armor piece to another yet.
I don't think so,
But I
no.
have a couple of green items that have really good abilities despite being worse
Hmm.
than like the purple items I have in every other way. And that's one of them. I can't remember the name of the gloves, but it's just a set of gloves that has that ability with radiant
That's
damage. There's nothing else
wild.
crazy about the gloves, but it's just
Yeah.
that. Same thing for my barbarian. There's a like a skin render halberd that makes it so whenever you deal damage, you gain stacks of force conduit,
Yeah.
and each stack of force conduit reduces the amount of damage you take by one, and then once you hit 5 stacks it adds force damage to your attacks. And so with barbarian, they can attack 3 to 4 times a turn with AoE attacks that can hit multiple enemies. I can build like 10 stacks of force conduit in a turn and then take no damage from anything and deal extra force damage on everything
Yeah,
for a while.
my
So even though the weapon's like worse than a bunch of other weapons I have in every other way, it creates an invincible barbarian, and so I use it.
yeah, my first playthrough was a frenzy barbarian.
Yep.
Was a
Yep.
berserker.
That's exactly what mine
Um
is.
yeah, and she was once she got hasted, I called it the blender.